welcome to my March wrap-up. So today I'm going to talk to you about all of the books I read in March. I read 5 books again in March. Here are the genres, the little spread, kind of typical for me. You can see romance and YA as per. And then there was actually a lot of literary fiction, or I say a lot, I think 2, which is a big deal, you know, 2/5. I rated books a 3.9 out of 5 on average, and you can see there's quite a range there over what I was rating books. That is lower than the rest of the months in this year. I suppose it's only the 3rd month, so it's not saying much. But that may have to do with the fact that I read 2 literary fiction books, which is a genre I don't absolutely adore. Here's how many pages I was reading throughout the month. Still very similar to all other months. I don't think there's anything crazy. I read just under 2,000 pages this month. So basically I was reading shorter books, and when you see the books, that'll make sense. Those are the stats for March, so let's actually jump into the books. The first book I read in March was Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. So, Thunderhead. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. This is the second book in a YA dystopian series, and I read the first book last year, and it is the Scythe series. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the Scythe world, just in case you've not heard of this series, though it is pretty big. This series is set in the distant future where we as humans have eliminated death by old age anyway. Like, there's no such thing as like disease, old age, war, all of that kind of stuff. There's no just death. But because of, obviously, if no one's dying, overpopulation will eventually become a thing. A system has been made to handle overpopulation and population control. And that system is scythes. Scythes are specific people chosen to choose who dies. So they kind of meet quotas, they make lists and choose people who die. Like, it's a very honorable job-ish, but also you kind of get ostracized a little bit because obviously people see a scythe, they're like, oh no, run away. So that's how the balance is maintained, and obviously it is YA dystopia, therefore there's corruption in this system. There's bad scythes who are taking advantage of their power, and obviously there's our like honorable scythes who, you know, the book follows and stuff. So this book continues on from where the first book left off. We follow Rowan and Citra and their kind of different plots. I don't want to spoil really anything, but yeah, there's kind of there are 2 stories going on. They don't actually spend much time together. In case you're expecting them to spend time together, don't expect that. They're not really together much. One thing I really liked about this world, or this book specifically, is what's called the Thunderhead. So the name of the book is Thunderhead. So the Thunderhead is basically this all-knowing AI. Kind of, it sees all, knows all, that kind of stuff. Except in this book, it's not evil, you know, that kind of, oh, AI is going to outsmart us and take over. In this book, the AI is all-knowing and powerful, and it creates the world, it sets the world up so that it runs the best, most efficiently, and keeps balance, kinda. But it's also like somewhat sentient, like it has thoughts and feelings to some degree. And so the Thunderhead is quite a different take on, you know, oh, the robots are gonna get smarter than us and kill us. No, it's going to look after us. Something happens around the end with the Thunderhead, which I like quite liked. No spoilers, don't worry. But I enjoyed the Thunderhead, and we get parts of its like inner monologue, if that's what you want to call it, and we see its interactions with people. Oh, and something else I should mention is there's separation between Scythe and Thunderhead to keep everything fair because Thunderhead knows all. It's to stop inequality and like the Thunderhead advising who dies and stuff, to stop this evil computers taking over kind of idea. So the Thunderhead can't involve itself in Scythe problems and can't actually speak to Scythes. So the Thunderhead is kind of struggling with that actually in the book because it wants to help certain Scythes. It can see that they're going to do bad stuff. Some Scythes are going to do bad stuff and it wants to stop that, but it can't. And yeah, it's all these other parts. And the Thunderhead also finds loopholes sometimes to talk to our Scythes. So it was really interesting. There's not much I can say about this book without going into bits from the first book as well, but I highly recommend this series. I've really enjoyed it so far. I think there is one more book called The Toll, and I'm very excited to read that because the end of this book really it's intense. It came out of nowhere for me. I did not see where it was going, so I really enjoyed that, and so I will definitely keep going and finish this series eventually. I'm currently trying to read my books rather than buy new ones, but you know that will be one of the first books I probably buy next. So I highly recommend. The next book I read was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I gave this 3 out of 5. Clearly wasn't a favorite of mine. I spoke about this book in my reviewing Irish books video that I put up recently enough, so check that out for more detailed opinions and stuff. So I'll keep it brief here. Basically, Hamnet is a historical fiction based around William Shakespeare's son, Hamlet. Hamnet, they're kind of interchangeable for the time. I didn't love this book, and I did want to, but it didn't speak to me in maybe the way it was supposed to. It felt a bit tedious sometimes. The prose was quite nice, quite lovely, and I could imagine, people being able to write essays on it, stuff like that. But I didn't enjoy myself. I was just like, no, I have to finish this book. Keep reading it. And I would read it in like increments just to get it done. And so that's not how I like to feel when I'm reading. I like to feel like the book ran away from me and I didn't even notice it going, rather than 10 pages to the end of chapter, 10 pages so I can put this down for the day. That's not the vibe. So yeah, I'd be willing to try out some more Maggie O'Farrell books, but I know just this one was not for me. Maybe it was just the certain elements of it, like with the plot, like this speculative fiction, because it was based on like real people, but it was so long ago that there's no actual answers to what the author was speculating about. So it's kind of just, oh well, here's a nice story with slightly concrete moorings in the past, and just I didn't gel with it as well as I'd say someone else would. If you're into historical fiction, I'm sure that it would be for you. It's just not necessarily for me. And also, since I gave it 3 out of 5, that was dragging the whole average down for my month. Yeah, for a more comprehensive chat about it, check out that other video. Next, I read The Score by Elle Kennedy. So this was actually the book I pulled out of my TBR jar for March. So we got it read. I gave this a 3.25 out of 5. And so I enjoyed this more than Hamnet, which kind of feels illegal because comparing it. But sure, look, this is the 3rd book in the Off-Campus series. So the Off-Campus series, it's not really a series, but kind of is. It's a collection of interconnected standalone books. So realistically, if you really wanted to, you could read any of these books alone, or you could read it really in any order rather than the order they were published. I do stick to publication order just to avoid spoilers, and that's the only reason I can imagine you would skip them or jumble them up, is because there's slight spoilers for the next book or last book in each one, but it's really not that big of a deal, especially, oh yeah, they're hockey romance, by the way. So Since they're hockey romance, it's not that deep. You don't have to be so like super crazy about the order and making sure you read them correctly or whatever. But yeah, so this is the third one in that kind of series. And so by now I have a pretty good grasp on who the characters are, and we do see a load of all the other characters really from the other two books in this as well. You are kind of building a relationship with the other characters and seeing how their relationships have continued. This book, the score was definitely better than the last one, which was The Mistake. It was right behind my head, The Mistake. I wasn't a massive fan of The Mistake. I was kind of bored, whereas The Score I found at least a bit more interesting. The couple in this book are Dean, who is the big playboy of the hockey team. The other two boys were playboy-esque, but not nearly as bad as Dean. And Ali, who is Hannah from the first book, his best friend slash roommate. And Ali has just gotten out of a long-term relationship. And yeah, that's where the story is. That's all the story is really. It's just them getting along, not getting along, fighting, not fighting. There's not too much going on obviously in that book because it's a hockey romance and it's just for the romance. But yeah, the dynamic was interesting enough, seeing Ali kind of getting over her past relationship and Dean kind of figuring out what he wants to do with his life and realizing that the way he was going on just, you know, was not it, was not the vibe. The usual, really, what you expect when it comes to a hockey romance. I only have 3 of them. I believe there is a 4th and then like a legacy series kind of thing. It's not one of my top priorities to continue with because I have so many other books and I have other hockey romances to read. I still have Wildfire and Consider Me, which are 2 other hockey romance series that I'm in the middle of. And I actually own those books, whereas I do not own any other of these off-campus books. I got this in like a book set type thing. So I won't be running to the shop to read the next one or the Legacy series or anything. This might be the last time you hear me talk about the off-campus series ever, or at least for a good while. So thanks, Elle Kennedy, I think. Next, I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I gave this 4.75 out of 5. Oh my gosh, I have finally jumped into this universe. This is a YA fantasy, and this is the first book in that series. And basically, there's kind of like an expanded Stephanie Garber universe from what I could pick up. Potentially only like 6 books in that universe, but you never know. You know, Cassandra Clare's universe used to only be 6 books, so you never know how it goes. So with Caraval, I'll give you a quick look at the world, get the idea. So once a year, there is this event called Caraval, and think of it like a carnival, like, you know, hence the name, I'm assuming. And Caraval is this magical adventure, almost like trial thing. And each Caraval has like a task, or like I said, a trial to win. There's a way to win. And the prize for this year, this Caraval, is a wish, 1 wish. So the guy who runs it, his name is Legend. Pretty, you know, iconic, I suppose. And Legend is magical, and hence how Caraval is so magical. And so he will grant the winner a wish of this trial activity week. Oh, did I mention it was a week-long event? Anyway, Caraval lasts a week, 1 week out of every year. So then we have our 2 main characters. They are twin sisters, Scarlett and Donatella, and they want to go to Caraval to win this wish. And plot, that's where the plot happens. So what I really liked about this world was the atmosphere. I think Stephanie Garber was very good at creating this magic and made it really feel mystical. Caraval felt like something between a fever dream and a fairy tale. Even just reading it, it really grabbed like your childlike wonder. Through the description, I really got that sense of anything being possible while the girls were exploring. In Caraval, it felt like everything's beautiful and magical, but if you peek underneath, it's like the danger is just underneath the surface. And so seeing it just really good. I really enjoyed reading a fairy tale and knowing that also it's not as beautiful and mystical as it seems. I will definitely keep going with the Caraval series. I have Once Upon a Broken Heart. However, apparently Once Upon a Broken Heart and the last book in the Caraval trilogy kind of overlap, and so therefore there is like massive spoilers at the start of that book for the end of that series. And so I think I'm going to have to leave Once Upon a Broken Heart on my shelf until I read the other 2 Caraval books. And again, I don't know how soon that'll be because of I don't want to buy more books. I want to read a bit more that I have before going out and buying more. So I'm kind of sad about that, but that's also a good thing that I'm sad about that. I can only imagine that this series is going to get even better, because I might be wrong, but I feel like this might be her debut, which is great because it only goes up from there. Your debut is never your best book. So I'm excited, and I will definitely read more of this world and universe. So I'm excited for that. And now the final book I read in March was None of This Is Serious by Katherine Pacifica. So this is another one I read for this video that I mentioned earlier. So for a full review and chat about it, check out that video. I'll go into it way more. I give this a 4 out of 5, and it is also contemporary literary fiction, that kind of genre. So it was a surprisingly good one for my taste. And the basic idea is that the main character has just graduated from university and is like, yo, what am I doing with my life? And so it was very relatable. It's set in Ireland, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it, the realness, and I really liked the call out of social media and the way we consume social media, especially the main character. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's definitely like a metaphor. The whole thing is like a metaphor for COVID, stuff that's going on, and how we reacted to COVID with social media and stuff. I enjoyed it. I would recommend. It's also not that long, 200 and something pages. So it was a good quick read, and it was a good one to include in my Irish books video. That's all the reviews done for the month. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pick an April book. So we have our TBR jar, and look, she's getting emptier. I'm getting there. I'm getting through these books. What do I have to read this month? I have one. I'm nervous. How Do You Like Me Now? So I believe this is a Holly Bourne book. How Do You Like Me Now? I've had this book a long time. It started to like yellow a little bit, and it's very floppy. 2019 is when this, 2018, 2019. So How Do You Like Me Now? On the list for this month. So there we go. That was my March wrap up. Thank you for watching. I will see you soon.